How's it going out there, YouTube? My name is Jesse, and I am back with another Golden Age Spotlight video. Well, today is the 4th of July, and I am finally going to be reviewing the hero that I have been building up for the entire month of June. Now, this hero has not just been one person. It has been many different people over the years with many different incarnations, and each person has pretty much represented the same thing. Now, this is the very first patriotic themed superhero in the comic books. There have been many heroes in the comic books that represented the ideals of America, truth, justice, and the American way, but never was so much of a symbol of America with true patriotism, the same way that Captain America encapsulizes it. So we are going to be reviewing the very first patriotic themed superhero in the comic books, which inspired many superheroes, many that I named on this list, and some that I haven't even covered that I will cover in future videos, because as fascinating as I find the Golden Age videos, the patriotism has an interesting set all on their own, and they can be their own set of things to review. I'm going on a tangent here. Anyways, the very first patriotic superhero in the comic books, patriotic themed, is the Shield. The Shield, Joe Higgins, first appeared in Pep Comics #1 in 1940 under MLJ publication. The writer was Harry Sorton, and the artist, I'm not sure how to pronounce his first name, it's IRV. His last name was Norvik. The Shield was created to capitalize on America's patriotism, which started stirring with the beginnings of World War II. A number of other heroes would follow in the wake of the Shield, also inspired by America's patriotism, which would be Captain America, Minuteman, and Captain Battle, which would all appear in 1941. The origin of the Shield would first appear in the Wizard Shield Comics #1 in 1940. His father was a chemist working on a super soldier serum and was slain by a German saboteur. Joe would continue to work on his father's formula and realized that the super soldier serum, or super strength serum, would work when it was applied to certain parts of his anatomy, like if he would get it to his heart or eyes or lungs, and then he would expose himself to x-rays to make the formula work. When the powers finally fully emerged, he had super strength, the ability to make great leaps, and he was bulletproof and fireproof, but it was later changed to be invulnerable. Now, when the Shield first debuted, they made hints that it was the outfit that gave him the powers, but then later cemented the fact that he had the powers, which was caused by the formula and the x-rays. The only person at the time to know the Shield's true identity would be the chief of the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover, and he would actually go to become an FBI agent for a number of years. In Pep Comics #11 in 1941, the Shield would start teaming up with Dusty Simmons. Dusty's father was killed by foreign agents, and Joe would adopt him, and they would become a dynamic duo, if you would. Dusty would get a costume that mimicked Joe's, and he would have powers that was very similar. In Pep Comics number 20, there was a storyline called The One and the Only Shield, and they were portraying this shield as the original shield. The cause for this was the shield came out before Captain America, but when Captain America debuted, he had a shield that was very similar to the costume that the shield wore. The shield wanted Captain America to stop, and they would accuse Captain America and Timely Comics of plagiarism, which then the shield that Captain America had would be converted into a round shield, and this would help make the distinction between the two, because Captain America's success was looking to be able to eclipse the Shield's success. The Shield and Dusty would be the first superheroes to be in the very first crossover storyline in American comic books. It hadn't actually been done until that point. They would team up with the Wizard, and they would stop an invasion plot of a country that was made up of Nazi Germany and Soviet elements. The Shield was one of MLJ's most popular characters at the time, and there would actually be a fan club for the Shield, which was the Shield G-Man Club. The Shield would star in a number of comic books, which would include Pep Comics and other titles such as the Shield Wizard Comics and Top Notch Comics. But then would come the villain that the Shield could not defeat, Archie Andrews. I jest. Archie Andrews started taking the cover spot on the Pep Comics. He would take the fan club from the Shield, and it would become the Archie fan club. And with Archie and his adventures starting to take the main stage, the MLJ superheroes would come to an end. Now this is where the timeline's going to get a little dicey. It's going to kind of jump back and forth, because Joe Higgins would appear a couple of times as the Shield again, but this would be intermixed with other people that have become the Shield. So I'm just going to cover each person one by one as they appear before we get on to the next one. Joe Higgins would return as part of DC Comics when they would be doing the MLJ characters. In 1991, DC would still be having the rights to the Shield comic and would come out with Impact Comics, which is a number of other of the MLJ superheroes that were owned by DC at the time would come out, such as the Comet and the Web. The Shield was one of them, and it did have Joe Higgins at first. In this storyline, Joe Higgins' father was a general and wanted his son to become the first test subject for Project Shield. When Joe discovered that his father had arranged the murder of his best friend, he went AWOL, taking the top secret Shield outfit with him. Later, Joe Higgins would be replaced by another person, who I will cover that when I get to him. Joe Higgins would also return one more time with DC Comics in a mini-series called The Mighty Crusaders. In 1959, the Shield would be brought back. This time, the Shield would be Lancelot Strong, and he would appear for the first time in The Double Life of Private Strong, and he was created by Joe Simon and Jack Kirby. Now, if those names sound familiar to you, those were the same two people who created Captain America, And the artwork for the second shield definitely does show this. Lancelot's father was a scientist, and he was hoping to create superhuman powers by expanding the mind. And he would use his infant son to make as a test case. Yeah, best way to say that. His father would be killed, and he would be raised by a foster family. And when he hit his teens, he discovered that he had superhuman abilities. He had superhuman strength. He could fly, nearly invulnerable, had visionary powers, the able to generate lightning, and a few more. I don't know how in the world expanding your mind gives you these powers, but there you go. He lived a double life, which hence is the reason for the title of the comic, Double Life of Private Strong, where he was part of the army, and he basically acted like a country bumpkin, where he would also live his life as the Shield. He wanted to seem like an incompetent so nobody would think that he was the Shield. In 1999, the Archie Comics did sign over the rights of Lancelot Strong to Joe Simon. Lancelot was also part of the second incarnation of the Mighty Crusaders in the 80s. The Shield will return again in 1965 in Flyman number 31, and it would be part of the Radio Comics Mighty Comics. This, I'm assuming it's still MLJ, or it would be Archie at that time. This version was Bill Higgins, and he was the son of Joe Higgins. He would find that his father would be turned to stone by a villain called the Eraser, and he would continue his father's work. His father was being a scientist, as we showed before, because of this formula. He would carry on his father's work and give himself the formula, which would give him strength and limited invulnerability. He would come up with a costume, which was a variant of the Shield, and he would appear until the Radio/Mighty Comics run would come to an end. The next one that would take over the role of the Shield, and this would be the one in Impact Comic who took the role from Joe Higgins, would be Michael Barnes. Now, he did appear in Legend of the Shield number 1, but he wouldn't take over the role as the Shield until later on, where he would first appear as the Shield in Black Hood number 5. He took over the role of the Shield in Legend of the Shield number 13. Joe Higgins would eventually return to the role of the Shield, and then Michael Barnes would take on the new identity as the American Shield, which he would return for the Crucible storyline. And this was all in the early 1990s. In 2015, Red Circle Comics would rebrand themselves as Dark Circle Comics. They would come out with a number of new heroes at this time, still part of the Archie comic books line. They would come out with a new version of the Shield. She was Victoria Adams. She first appeared in 2015, where she would take up, as I said, the mantle of the Shield. The series ran for 4 issues. After this, she continued to be the Shield and also a part of the Mighty Crusaders, and this was written by Ian Flynn. I don't know if Dark Circle Comic Books is still putting out comic books today. This was just some of the information that I was able to find. Now, this is something I was able to find. I was brushing up on the last of the research, and I stumbled upon this. The original Shield, which came out as part of Impact Comic Books. The original Shield was Roger Higgins, and it looked like he first appeared in Legend of the Shield number 8. At the height of the Cold War, Roger Higgins had developed a special armor that allowed him to become the Shield. This version of the Shield appeared in a number of the Impact comic books and was created by Mark Waid. Apparently, Roger would disappear in the 60s, and later his armor would be found and improved upon, which would be the armor that Joe Higgins would be wearing when he started his run as the Shield in Impact Comics. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that you learned something. If you did know who I was going to be covering before this video started, I hope you learned something new. If you didn't know, I hope you enjoyed listening to the trek that the Shield has had throughout the years. It's possible that new stories can even come out. It's kind of one of those heroes that never really seem to go away. So until next time, I'll be seeing you.